Welcome. My name is Antonio Vecchio, and I'm the Consumer Engagement Lead at the Spinal Research Institute. With the Paralympics upon us, athletes with disabilities can showcase their talents on a global stage. Today, I'm joined by Leanne Rees. Leanne is an experienced spinal physiotherapist and PhD candidate at La Trobe University. In a 2018 study, Leanne analysed the media coverage of the 2016 Olympic and Paralympic Games and spoke about the differences in media portrayal in the study. Welcome, Leanne.
Thanks, Antonio.
So I guess, can you tell us about the study and a bit behind the motivation behind the study?
Yeah, so as you said, I did an analysis of Channel 7's broadcast of the Olympic and Paralympic Games. And my motivation actually goes back a few steps as a physiotherapist working with people with newly acquired spinal cord injury and helping them integrate back into life and the community. I kind of realized there were no images at all available to them of people with spinal cord injury or disability being physically active. It was only every 4 years that you would see some images of athletes, para-athletes participating in sport. So that's kind of stemmed my interest in media. And then whilst I was doing my master's in public health, it just happened to coincide with the 2016 Games. And it was the first time that a commercial channel was broadcasting both. So it became a really great platform to do an analysis.
Awesome. So what were your major takeaways from the study?
So it was, I get twofold. So obviously I got the opportunity to analyse the Olympics as well as the Paralympics. And I found that I actually enjoyed watching the Paralympics a little bit more, which when you look at the title of my paper, it's, what was the title of my paper? No, terrible. Wait on, I've got it here. A major sporting event or an entertainment show. That's right. So the Olympics was definitely pitched and produced as a sporting event, but the Paralympics was more entertainment. And that's definitely how I experienced it. And whilst athleticism is being slowly more promoted in Paralympic sport, there was still the introduction of a lot more humour and diversity in the broadcast, which you could potentially stem into that, feeding into those negative stereotypes that exist around Paralympic athletes.
And I guess when watching yourself, did you relate that the Paralympics was more entertaining to you as an individual than the Olympics?
Yeah, and mainly for that, like you look at the Olympics and I kind of feel like Olympic athletes are programmed like robots. I mean, they are incredible human beings with athleticism, but I actually couldn't ever associate with that. And that's where I found the Paralympics more engaging, because I could actually see more relatability. Like, I don't have a disability myself, and I know it's potentially a little bit biased because of my work in disability, but I actually think there are elements within the Paralympics that I can associate to more than in the Olympics. And also some of the narrative around the Olympic athletes, say, for example, when they were interviewed after their event and they came fourth, it was always framed by the journalists, oh, are you disappointed with fourth? And I just think that's terrible. But on the flip side, you could say, you know, that was never the approach of a journalist when talking to someone with a Paralympic athlete. And you could criticise that because maybe they should be treated equally. But I don't think anyone should be treated badly or made to feel bad, or there's that negative frame when you come fourth in the Paralympics. So I think there's things that can be learnt across the two broadcasts.
I know, reading your study and just listening to your answer there, that I think as people, as individuals, we relate better to storytelling rather than, you know, watching scripted athletes almost talk about their disappointments, their highs and lows, and as opposed, there's no real human connection, but where a storyline exists, then we're more likely to relate.
Yeah, and there, I mean, as we know, there are so many stories that exist within the Paralympics, but I would say the same in the Olympics, but they don't necessarily get that profile. Like the Olympics will focus on just those top 5 athletes of the world, and you don't get to see the decathlon athlete from Uzbekistan, who spent their life fortune, to get to that level. And they're the kind of stories that we want to hear. So I actually think in the Paralympics, you get that more depth into hearing those stories, which is what I quite like. So I guess, looking back on that paper now, like it's been a while since I've written it and I've done a little bit more in the media space. I think we can critique the broadcast in that they definitely weren't equal, and there is that potential that it does feed that negative stereotype. And whilst portrayals are improving, I think we want to hold on to the storytelling, hold on to the relatability, but still make sure we celebrate the athleticism of the athletes.
I definitely agree. Did anything during the research surprise you?
Definitely those elements that I've just spoken about. I also looked at companies that sponsored the 2 broadcasts, because being the first time it was on a commercial channel, because prior to that it had been on the ABC, the Paralympics that is. So there was never an opportunity for companies to advertise. So what we know, that's going to be a key part of the broadcast when it's on a commercial channel. And a popular car company, which we might all know of, who like to sponsor both Olympic and Paralympic broadcasts, during the Olympic broadcast, they had a competition where audiences could vote for the most memorable moment of the day, and then they'd go to draw to win a car. So, it's a pretty big competition that helps to engage the audience. But then for the Paralympics, they didn't have that at all. They just had this montage of scenes to emotive music, and that was their bit. And I was really like, they've really missed an opportunity here, and they've just fed into a script that they thought would work, putting Paralympic athletes into a montage with some emotive music. And so it's not just the Channel 7, the broadcaster, but obviously, there's big marketing departments that sit with all in these big companies. And I find it very interesting on how they decide to change their advertising for such a different event. So there's a lot more to it than what's on the surface, for sure.
Do you think that the coverage of this year's Paralympics will be in line with your findings?
I suspect it will continue to improve. So it's been 5 years now, obviously, with it being postponed last year. And so I think we could all, thinking back on just general TV, we're seeing a lot more people with disability integrated, whether their disability isn't the key part of being on the screen. So I think we're seeing greater diversity, and I think the narrative is shifting. So I think we will see some improvement. I think there still will be the entertainment value put to it. I'll be interested to see. So in 2016, Channel 7 put the Olympics on their main channel, but they put the Paralympics on 7/2, which is their minor channel. And then it was competing against all these other big shows that Channel 7 were broadcasting. And that's just representative of, well, it's not a high priority for them. So I do hope that that's changed. So to answer your question, I think hopefully there will be some improvement, but I think it will still be structured similarly as it did before.
I've definitely seen, just watching television recently, more ad campaigns with Paralympic athletes in them, which in hindsight may have not been something that's happened in previous Paralympic ad campaigns. So that's promising within itself.
Yeah, and seeing both the logos coming up, the Olympic one and the Paralympic one, I've seen that come up as well. So that is good signs.
Well, thank you, Leanne, for having this conversation about your study. It's really exciting, and I look forward to watching the Paralympics and seeing if there have been any changes in the coverage. So thank you so much.
No, thanks, Antonio. Thank you very much.